Thank you. Um, as of I think roughly Monday or Tuesday, they actually opened up the West Virginia Mountaineer rental assistance program. Um, Jennifer had started a meeting, I think it was last month or a couple weeks ago, just talking about it, some of the information. It's still a little bit rough. I wanted to spend a couple days kind of going through it before we had the meeting, just so I could talk a little bit about it. And I know we've had a couple members like Kathy Wood that have been through it. And I thought it would be good to just kind of at least get you guys started and introduced to it in case you guys had potential tenants that would qualify for it. It covers as far back, if you have any tenants with rent owed as far back as 4/1 of 2020, both in rent and utilities for those tenants. However, there's income requirements and there are rules, things that we kind of discovered even in my guys as we're trying to find anybody that qualifies. But not only does it cover the back rent, but right now it'll pay up to 3 months forward too for the tenant. It's COVID based, meaning that somebody has to be impacted by COVID, household member, family member, struggling at some point just based on whether it be, and it seems pretty broad. And it looks like all they're requiring the tenants to fill out is a statement, just attesting to the fact that they're impacted by COVID or a family member in their household is affected by COVID. But I wanted to just kind of walk through, because I think the biggest thing before you get involved in this is we've talked kind of an overview of it. I think I had posted on the Facebook just some do's and don'ts or lessons that we've learned so far. But one of the things that I think is important just to save you time with the tenants before you get too involved is just understand the qualifications. And I thought we'd talk a little bit about those because that is important. Not only on top of the COVID, I'm getting nervous for Jennifer's painting as I'm watching her paint pan there. Just kind of understanding if your tenant qualifies, because like we mentioned, the income is a factor. We talked about that in the last meeting. We talked about this. They roughly have $200 million that has been allotted for the state of West Virginia for this program, but 120 million of that is allotted to the people that qualify in the 50 percentile median income, which kind of similar to if anybody's familiar with HUD and how they do the median income based on the household, the income increases. So a one-person household is roughly 24,000. Up to an 8-person household, it's like 54,000. There's 50 percentile and there's 80 percentile. The 120 millions, as I understood it, was directed towards the 50 percentile of median income, and the 80 million was directed towards the 80 percentile. So meaning basically 80% of median income qualifications. One thing I did want to share about that income that we discovered, let's say a tenant worked all year, and then say in December, they made good money. And then December, they were impacted by COVID, whether they shut down the office, they got laid off due to COVID, they actually, if they made beyond the income requirements in 2020, even though now they're sitting on unemployment, struggling due to COVID, what we've been told is they do not qualify. So they actually had their qualification had to occur in 2020 for this to, regardless of what their current income is in 2021. So I'll verify that, but that's what we've kind of been told when we talk to the folks and start getting people kind of started in this process. Most of my folks, at least on my side, it's not as much. They're at this point where they stuck it out last year, but they got behind maybe a month or so. But they're struggling now because it's kind of the ripple effect, and it sounds like unless they actually made within those income requirements on their standard job, they may not qualify for any help this year. So just something to really spend a little bit of time looking at. But just to let me go ahead and share a screen here. Hey, Jennifer, you need to allow me to be able to share a screen. If you could hear me. It's share screen is disabled.
So I'm looking here. Share.
It's under security.
Screen. Okay, see if it came up now.
Still says disabled.
Let's see. All right, see if it did now.
Still disabled.
If
you look at the bottom of yours, it should say security, and that I think there's a checkbox to allow screen sharing.
I'm on my phone, so I don't have security at the bottom of mine. I have content sharing, and so that's what I hit. And it's asking me screen, but I think it's wanting me to share from mine rather than letting you share from yours. My options here are screen, photos, iCloud Drive, Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive, Box, website URL, and bookmark.
Hey guys, I'm going to log off real quick and log back on as Jennifer, and then that should give me back the full control, and I'll be right back.
Oh, wait, John. Whoop. I figured it out as soon as he hung up. Yeah, we'll have to wait for him for a minute. Do we have some new people on here? If you guys, we had several new people join this month over the last month, and then I've been so crazy busy with, I've had a lot of drama stuff happen in the last month, so I've kind of dropped the ball here. But if the new people are here, I would love for you guys to jump in and introduce yourselves.
Go ahead, Jennifer. Sorry. I am back now.
Okay. I can't see anybody else on here, but since you were gone, I was seeing if the new people wanted to jump in and introduce themselves. But we'll let you finish with the meeting, and then if we could get them to, I don't know if they're on the meeting today or not, but we've had several new people join over the last month or so.
Okay. Sorry, guys, where I left off is I was going to go ahead and start a screen share here just to kind of talk to the Mountaineer program. So we talked a little bit. Can everybody, I think everybody can see my screen here that you see, like read fact, begin application.
Yes.
So when they introduced this program, you can Google West Virginia Mountaineer rental assistance and make your way to the link. The actual link is West Virginia rental assistance program. Let me make sure I think that's right. WVM, like WV Mountaineer.
Hey, Kevin.
WVMRAP.com. That's the actual direct link to the Mountaineer rental assistance program. So what I wanted to start with, because this is probably the most important part of the program, is the qualifications, because clearly they have very specific eligibility requirements. We talked, like I mentioned, the 80 percentile, which you can actually get from that website before you even log in. You can download and see for your particular county what the like one person's 21,300 up to an 8-person in Kanawha County, which looks like is 40,150. But one of the things before they get started is I would make sure that they qualify. Am I eligible? Does your household meet the income requirements, which we looked at? You can help guide them in that. They can also call 211, and we've actually had tenants that have called the 211 number and they've helped them with the walking them through logging on the website, doing a pre-qualification. Definitely a good resource. And I would highly recommend sending them. If the 211 number doesn't work, on the main website, there is that 833 number, 848-9905 is also a number they can call for assistance. And they can help them pre-qualify them, basically. Are they eligible? They'll also, that number would be useful in situations. I know that Kathy had sent out a thing in the Facebook group about how do you send in a paper application. So Kathy, you can correct me. You may have dealt with this. I did call and ask them, and what they told me is that a tenant would call in to that 800 number, that 833 number, and they would mail them an application. If it's landlord related, they could also send him one as well. So if you didn't want to use the website, they did have a mechanism to do that, but they had to mail you that application. So
that's one reason. Apparently, Larry's office, they're trying to get the previous attorney to.
Francis.
wait, let me see if I can mute somebody here.
Yeah.
That might be Ellen's.
Can you tell who closed the last?
Francis died in Georgetown. Yeah.
Trying to mute. I can't do that from the share screen. So it seems okay now. Everybody see that I am eligible. So income restrictions in a renter household, so that they clearly have to be a renter, and someone in the household has to qualify for unemployment, or they're qualified for unemployment. They had a decrease in income due to COVID, or somebody is at risk for losing housing or instability. But like I mentioned earlier, what they were telling us for some of our tenants, that the income restrictions based on 2020, not their current. I'll correct that if that's different than what they told us. But as I mentioned before, if your tenant made a lot of money in 2020 and then all of a sudden is on unemployment in 2021, they're going to have a harder time. They're not qualified, is the way I understand it. Kathy, I don't know if you've I think had the most. You've been working with your tenants. Have you experienced that yet in terms of the income? You're muted, Kathy. I don't know if you can see that. You're currently on mute.
We have two, what I call sketchy situations. Relatively new tenants who both have received other assistance. Now, as to their current status of employment, it's very unclear. So I'm just giving them the option of exploring this. But I do have one tenant who has been unemployed, who's received unemployment. I'm aware of what his income is, and he's written down what documentation he needs to get. I'm surprised they're not asking for their tax information. That doesn't seem to be something they were asking for. But so I'm sure I've got one tenant who qualifies. The other two, as I say, their situation is somewhat sketchy, and I'm hoping to figure out in a hurry whether they qualify, because if they don't, we need to make other arrangements for their tenancy.
And I want to mention one thing, what United Way, which they've been a big help up until this Mountaineer program kicked in. They recommended for anybody that needed help that could not be helped by the Mountaineer rental program to come back to them, and they would look at trying to help them.
That's interesting. That's good to know, because one of our couples got help from United Way. Was substantial.
Yeah, I've had United Way's been wonderful. I mean, there's a couple others that I'd sent in that message to you guys, and some of them have various degrees of difficulty, and it seems like more difficult for the tenants, the process to go through to get the assistance. United Way's kind of like the streamlined process. It's from the point where they intake them, they accept them, they're cutting checks within days. It's been, I've never seen anything like it myself. So, but going back to, I just kind of want to give you guys a basic understanding of where you can direct your tenants, and then things that you may need to be aware of or be prepared for if your tenants do get assistance. It's very buggy right now. I've had some issues with some, I don't know if you guys have the same situation, just in terms of having multiple companies that I have rentals under, and having to set up the way the tax IDs are and all that. But they are working on it. They seem to, they have responded to one of the issues. And they've escalated another issue I had. But they do seem like they're taking the input, they're working it. And then they actually called me back. So that's a plus. So let's start with from the perspective of the tenant, since that'll be where you've got a tenant that needs help. You'll push them to the Mountaineer Rental Assistance Program website. They'll begin application, and there's two options for when you do log in. You either apply as the landlord, which we'll get to in a second, or you can apply as the tenant. And what's nice about the tenant portion of it, it actually kind of does a pre-qualification steps with the tenant. So it kind of gives them an idea, even through the website, whether they're qualified or not. So I thought we would just kind of walk through if we were a tenant and just apply, and just kind of give you guys a look at what's going on. So let's look at the documentation checklist of what would be expected from the tenants. It looks like the head of the household, proof that they're a rental holder, which would be a lease. Looks like they're looking for the rental property address to match their driver's license or current utility bill, 2020 W-2. And it looks like when they ask for proof of income eligibility, they provide documentation annually or monthly. And then they specifically showed some examples like 2020 tax return, pay stubs, unemployment benefits. Looks like they're looking for proof that somebody in the household or a member was impacted by COVID. And if you'll notice, they've got this self-certification form. From what I've been kind of input I've gotten back from tenants that have went through the process, it's just basically a self-certification. It's very general. You're having to prove your income, but there's no real documentation other than a self-certification that you've been impacted by COVID. Seems like it's very broad. And it looks like you demonstrate your ability to be at risk, past due utilities or rent notices, eviction notices. So looks like pretty straightforward. So let me go back to the pre-qualification. So this is if they pick the option for pre-qualification. Kind of the questions that they go through are, is it your primary? Since 2020, one or more households have qualified for unemployment benefits, or experienced reduction in household income. So that to me would be, people even, you could be working your full-time job and not changed, but had additional expenses related to cost of groceries, it seems very, very open-ended. So we'll say yes. Has any demonstrated risk of homelessness? So your past due rent, eviction notice, or past due utility. You enter the address of your unit. What's nice about it, based on the address, it gives you the max pre-tax income that that tenant can make in order to qualify. So that helps tremendously, in my opinion, in terms of just trying to get your tenants qualified. So it's saying at 102 Hunt Avenue, the max pre-tax income that you can have for, I'd say this is going by the 80 percentile, is 8. So, or for eight people in the household, the most they can make is 64,250. If you would enter an address in Putnam County, or it would do it based on that county. So we'll just say I'm qualified. Gives you some documentation for residency, W-2, weapons permit, vehicle registration. Kathy, I would think your new tenants would have a harder issue because they're probably, their license doesn't match your current resident, where they're currently at.
Right.
So I'm gonna go ahead and pick yes that I have one of those. It looks like it's just one of those. Is the address you're seeking internet assistance for your primary? So yes. And if it asked you if you've done it. So based on that, it would say that I'm pre-qualified, which then I would start the process of entering my information and then registering. So that's what we're looking at. Now, if the tenant does not have the ability to, hey, bub, I'm on the phone.
Can I go outside?
You can, but remember I told you I was on a meeting?
But still, do you mind if I go
No,
outside?
but what did I tell you about that?
Okay. I'm
Sorry.
going outside.
7-year-olds don't understand.
Yeah, I'm going outside.
All right, buddy. So it seems pretty straightforward. And as I mentioned, if they don't have access to the computer, they can call and get a paper application sent to them. Any questions so far? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Can you repeat the 833 number?
I can. It is. Let's see. Let me get that for you real quick. 833-848-9905. And I'll post that in the chat thing real quick. Well, when I get a chance, I'll post it.
I can't see.
Oh, okay. Did you get the number?
Not visual.
Oh, that's okay. They also can call the 211 number. They will also assist as well. Instead of 911, 211. But I have found that 833 number seems to be, from what my folks are saying, is the most reliable, specific to the program. The 211 number would help a tenant with other kind of resources that they may need, but they also do help with the Mountaineer rental assistance, and they'll actually talk to them, walk them through walking through the website, and helping them get letting them know whether they would qualify or not based on the information they're providing. If the tenant does this and they enter all their information, they start the application, you as the landlord, and it may be different. We're still learning. So this is just, please, it could change, but I'll try to post stuff as I learn it myself. If I have any success with a tenant getting it and things we're learning, I'll try to post it to our Facebook paid group. But if you're the landlord, my understanding, and I'm sure there's a paper version of this, but you will apply. You'll go to the kind of the same step. You'll begin an application, but rather than logging in or registering as the tenant, there's actually a link for landlords to register. And what this allows you to do is to set up an account, add properties, and associate the tax ID to your company and the associated properties. So like if you know a tenant has applied, let's say that 102 Hunt, I would add a property under my registration for 102 Hunt, and it would actually show up in my my login. So let's assume I've filled this information out and registered. This is what it looks like once you register. I think I'll set one up here. It allows me to add, now I can add properties under my login. So all I had to do was, as you saw, provide, your name, your company name, your contact. But then I can come into the properties and I can add the information that they're looking for to match up the properties I own with the properties that tenants are registered. So if you remember when I tried to register under the tenant 102 Hunt, I would come in here and add that property to my login, my landlord login. My information's a lot different. And if it's the first time that if it's the first time that this company, when it asks like property information, has been set up, then it will save that. And every time that I come in and add a new property, it'll show me that JRP and Associates has already been set up, and it'll pre-fill in this information. Now, if you're a property manager, you would enter the information for your owner here and their tax ID, and then it gives you the ability to add, as the property manager, your property management information. So if it's managed, if it's the same as the property owner, then you just click that it is. And where I think that's important is because they're wanting to give W-9s, and also once you add the property, they're wanting you to upload your W-9 for the owner property. So wherever they're paying rent to, they're wanting to add, they're wanting you to provide a W-9 for the owner, and they're wanting it to match. So the name and the tax ID, they want to match on that W-9.
So John, if they're going to be paying the rent to West Virginia Property Solutions,
I don't have that scenario, and it might be different, but like in my case, it's sending to the owner. I don't know if your scenario that you would upload your tax ID, your W-9 for your company, and maybe that is the case. I don't know the answer to that one, Ben. I haven't had to go through that scenario, but I imagine in that case you would enter your property management company, and on the next step, it asks you to enter the W-9. I would assume that at that point you provide your W-9, but I don't know that for sure. So that's something you could call that 833 number,
sure,
just to confirm.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
it's a little hairy. I mean, it's like as soon as I started to
Well,
sit down and enter,
it's kind of the same scenario that we get in with Charleston Housing, between whether they are 1099ing us at the end of the year,
yeah,
or they are sending it to the owner. And it goes all different ways. It depends on who you get. Nobody knows really what they're supposed to do and what they're going to do.
so you get it. You get different scenarios. Some you get, and some the owner gets. Oh wow,
it's a mess.
Yeah, that is a mess. Absolutely. So I'm sure this will be no different because it's government made and government ran. So let us know whenever you do, for the other property manager, if you do discover it first, just maybe share in the Facebook group, Ben, if you don't
Sure,
mind.
I can do that.
I want to go through, I'm going to log out real quick. I have one that I'd already kind of pre-set up some of these companies. I'm going to log back in as a landlord. Real quick here. And I have no idea what I set that to, so bear with me here. Now, one of the things too, when you tie your email and your social security number, or not social security, but your cell phone and your email, it likes to do authentication. So the first time you log on, it'll want to send you a link that you got to enter this verification code. let me see if I can get it to do that so you guys can see that. I'm gonna have it send me a new. So I forgot it. So let me see if I'm gonna have it send it to me real quick. So I'm gonna reset my password real quick here, guys. Give me 1 second. Actually, I was able to, I had it saved over somewhere else here. Can everybody still see that? So I'm just going to log in as a different ID. Now it didn't prompt me, but if this would have been the first time I would have logged in, it would have wanted to send me a link either to my cell phone or the email. Just keep that in mind. And it's just they call it two-factor authentication. It's just a security thing. Just ensure that you are you. So I'm gonna go in there this time under this account, and I'm gonna add that property. Now I had already set up JRP and Associates. I want to mention one thing, and notice when I picked it, it kind of pre-filled in information. So for me, one of the initial issues I had, and I did solve that, but I had to solve it by getting an EIN number. I own my LLC. So when I report things, I treat it as what they call a disregarded entity. So I may have 2 or 3 LLCs, but I've always reported them. I still report them on my personal taxes. So they have the same tax ID. For me to do this and to support all my companies, I went ahead and set up an EIN number. I'll still report them on my personal. I won't do a business return on them. It's just for reporting purposes. I actually had to set up an EIN for each one that I used to treat like that. And one of the reasons I had to do this because every company has to, in their system, has one tax ID, and it's fixed. They don't. I checked with them. There's no way to edit it. So once you set it up, I shouldn't say there's no way. They don't have it. They don't allow us to edit it, and they don't have in the first level support the ability to change it. So there is some just different scenarios, but my point is most of you guys may not have that issue, but the main thing is when you set up an email account, don't set up multiple, because once you set up your landlord account, if you would set up this, let's say your company and your tax ID, and then you try to create another username, it won't allow you to set up that same user ID or that same property management company name and the tax ID. So they're real funny about that. And I think the reason they do that is because they're trying to tie, the property that you add as the landlord as the property that the tenant picks, when they apply for assistance. So that seems to be one issue. But once I selected, if you noticed, I don't have to enter any information, and it presets my tax ID. In this case, I always did the property managers the same, but let's say I use my property management company. I would have to go through and set it up. Most of you guys are probably like me. You would just click that the property manager is the same as the property owner. Now, here's the property information. So for each person that applies, like I had set up that 102 Hunt Avenue, that has to be entered here. So when you enter the address, 102 Hunt Avenue, Charleston, and I save and continue, here's where it prompts me for the W-9. So Ben, I think in your case, I'm assuming you would upload the W-9 for the property management company. And then whereas for me, I would do it as the JRP and Associates. So we upload a file, a W-9. Now, payment method, right now it's just check. So what they're asking there is, how do you want to be paid? So the only option right now is check. Let me see if I can find a W-9 and I'll just upload it again, just to show you guys.
Hey, John, I'm not seeing anything other than that first screen. I don't know if you're,
Oh, do you see the please upload W-9?
no, all I see is the main page where you log in. That's all I.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me fix that then. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Let me see. Bear with me here. Does anybody else see the W-9?
No.
Do you just see the main screen where you log in?
Yes.
Just the lock screen.
Oh, okay. Okay, hold on. Let me fix that. I had moved a screen over. Maybe it didn't pick it up. You see this?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me back up. I didn't realize you guys couldn't see that. So when I had logged in, once I had, let me just start from the beginning here. I went to log in and I logged in as the landlord. So I picked that option. I'd already registered my account. I came in, I've got a tenant that wants to apply at 102 Hunt Avenue. So I'm going to add my property as the owner. 102 Hunt Avenue for me is owned by JRP and Associates LLC. And as I was mentioned, I'd already set this up. So the first time you set up like your name or your company name, it'll remember that. And it'll remember the information that you provided, including your tax ID. And that's what I was mentioning earlier. It's very important that when you set up your landlord account, don't set up multiple ones. I'll try to only keep one, because if for some reason you mess something up, you're going to have to go through support to have them make any changes to it. And if somebody would happen to apply to the account that you set up and maybe you messed it up, they can't delete it if it's already been associated to an applicant. So there's a couple little system gotchas. This is what I was mentioning being on the property management. There's a section that for me, I would just click it and say that I'm the owner. For you, clearly you'd put your information in. And that's where I'm assuming you'll have to verify that the next screen that we go to, you'll enter your W-9 for your company. I'm going to go ahead and enter that 102 Hunt Avenue, because this is the address that I'm adding to the system to allow my tenant, that it'll tie my tenant that's applying to the property that I have associated to me. So I save and continue. It recognized that I had already included a W-9 for this property. Otherwise, you would have uploaded it. Let me go ahead. I'll actually choose it. Let me pick it. And everybody can see that, right? Give me 1 second. I'm gonna delete it and re-add it.
Do you have to add it for each property, the W-9 form?
The current way they have the system set up, it looks like you do, Kathy. They may tell you otherwise, but like it recognizes, like if you upload it one time for that company, it recognized that I had already uploaded that. So hopefully not, but I wouldn't bet against it, because it's very, it doesn't seem very thought through right now in terms of what the system does. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm just trying to. Okay. So I'm gonna delete this one. So you can download a form here. Does everybody see the form it downloaded?
Yes.
And fill it out and save it. You would have to sign it, which you can sign in Adobe. We've talked about that in previous meetings. Let's assume you've made it through that process or gotten help. You pick upload. I save this. Somewhere over here. I don't see it. Not sure why I don't see it, but hold on, bear with me here. There we go. So this was my W-9 that I created. If I click on it, it's got my name, the business name, my address, my EAN number for it, my signature and date. And that's what I was required to upload. And as I mentioned before, the payment method right now is only check. I'm assuming that, I hope, and maybe we won't be doing this long enough to even care, but direct deposit, but as of now, they'll send you a check. I can invite users. So if you have other people helping you, you can add a user, which would be a user email address. And that would be somebody that would be assisting you in their role. Property owner, the property manager. Save and continue. And so now I've created that property. So what is now available is if I have the tenant and they apply, they will they'll match up to me and my information, which is my mailing address, my property location, and I have my W-9 on file. So if they would approve them, then they would tie that person to that. That's pretty much where I am with the process. I've got, I think, 3 people that have applied. I've had one person that called the number. They said they didn't qualify due to the income during 2020. And I've had some issues, kind of getting things initially set up. It seems very buggy. But that's kind of where I am. Kathy, how have you had in terms, I know you mentioned your 2 folks. Do you have any other impressions or any other useful insight?
Just a little bit of a frustration level. I entered, my husband, Eric, is the owner, and entered myself as the property manager. And somehow on one of the autofill things, it started listing me as the owner. And I thought, well, that's going to create problems with the W-9 form. So I went in and deleted what I had put in. Well, apparently that was a big mistake. So because when I would call in and ask for assistance when adding a property, I couldn't get it to add any properties because of the FEIN number, the tax ID number. It kept saying this must be a unique number or something like that. It would pop up in red. So
yeah, that's the issue I have. Yeah.
So then when I would call in, they said, oh, we don't even have you in the system. So I realized that by deleting that information, I made a mistake. So I don't know how that's going to be rectified. That's when I started asking questions about paper applications. And I know one of my tenants who I know qualifies, I don't see him going down to the Kanawha County Public Library and using their portal to sign on at one of their terminals. So I'm going to get a paper application for him. They're going to send me they're going to mail me a paper application.
So when maybe what we could do to, maybe I'll request a copy as well, and I'll digitize it for you guys, and we'll put it up on the website. I don't know if that would help. That way you guys could distribute it and maybe at least be, because it sounds like they'll just send you kind of a generic application that's not pre-filled in.
Right.
Kathy? Okay.
Yes, yes. And that way, if I want to make copies, and if I choose to, I can hand deliver it to my tenants. One of my tenants doesn't have, I don't think has a phone. I text her and I don't get any response. So I don't think she has a phone. So that complicates issues as well.
And I think I have the same issue. I think I have tenants that may qualify for at least the future help, but I'm not sure that unless I send somebody to their house and walk them through filling it out, I'm not convinced I'll get
Right.
any success.
That's right.
So guys, I apologize. It's not as kind of from completion to the end with the application. It's just as far as I can go without actually submitting an application. But I just want to kind of get you guys introduced to it's open. Some of this, kind of point you to what we've learned in terms of the numbers to call, the level of support you get, and just some gotchas so far that you may have. But it's new. And I'm sure that if you got a tenant that needs help, hopefully it's a great resource. But don't be discouraged if you still have a tenant that needs help. There does appear to still be some money for those guys from United Way. So.
Oh, you have that. Yes.
I put that on.
Any questions or discussion?
Eric has a comment to make.
Okay.
The Form A.
It's in place of a lease. Yeah.
Certification of landlord-tenant relationship. And that's Exhibit A. And I've put that on, Word document as a fill-in form.
So is that just kind of like your, are you saying that in lieu of having a lease that you can just provide that to show proof of that there's a landlord-tenant relationship?
Yes, that's be signed by both tenant and landlord.
Okay.
And what I set up was basically, the form is there. All you have to do is tab through it and fill out the blanks. So you don't have to worry about the form. The form's permanent. You can't erase the form, but you can put in the information on each one of the tenants or each tenant.
Could that go on the West Virginia Landlord Association website? Would that be something people would be interested in?
I don't know. Send it. I'll look at it. I mean, if I think that we could use it, I'll put it up.
Okay, I'll send it to you.
Yep, send it to me.
Well, it's easy enough to use, and you're not handwriting it, because as usual, in most forms, they don't give you enough space to handwrite stuff in.
Sure.
But by typing it in, you have enough space.
Yeah, sure. No, it makes sense.
It's much clearer. There's no question about the spelling on tenant or any of the other information.
Mm-hmm.
Since my handwriting isn't terribly good anyway.
Yeah, I'll set, if I get a blank application, I'll also scan it and put it up there too. So anything I get, if you guys find stuff or get stuff, send it to me, and if you think it's worth sharing, we'll put it up on the website.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
I'm just wondering if anybody has filed any evictions of late.
I got an eviction about 2 weeks ago. I even had a lady fight it all the way up to circuit, and they even appointed her a free attorney, and I still got her out. So,
what were the grounds?
I went for breach of lease. She was paying. It was fine. It was just she was letting a lady move in, and she was causing a disturbance among my other tenants. Of course, she countersued me, claimed that, it was uninhabitable. She'd been there over a year and a
Sure,
half, and I gave her
course.
30-day notice. And, basically it sent her certified letter, all that, and then filed eviction when she didn't leave. So I gave her time. It's just she chose not to. But they gave me eviction without any, even had the sheriff set her out. So they're doing it. But breach of lease is the key.
Right.
Her attorney that they got appointed to her did claim he brought the CDC form in, which she did not provide when we were going through the eviction, and claimed that you could not evict her based on that, even though it was breach of lease. But that if you read through that nobody argued it because they didn't, you just sit and wait for the magistrate to rule. But he seemed to imply that you still couldn't, even in a breach, but they didn't see it that way. So
Sure.
I just had somebody evicted as well. They owed me over $3,000.
wow,
He didn't show in court, so they gave it to me.
excellent.
Up in circuit court, did you take a lawyer with you?
Yes, I did have an attorney. And that I used to go up there, but they're so formal, and when it gets to that point, it's for me worth it just to pay.
Do they not require you to have an attorney in circuit court?
If you're an LLC, that depends on the magistrate. I always get the sense that they'll hear you the first time, but if it goes past the first time, then they'll expect you to have an attorney the second time.
Sure.
But I feel more comfortable at circuit just because there's so much more formal about it. It's magistrate.
I've never had an attorney with me at circuit.
And I have one too, but it just seems like I just feel better. So, but Eric, is your properties LLCs or in your name?
No, LLCs.
Okay. And maybe it depends on the circuit judge too, how they're interpreted, I guess.
I just wondered, in Ohio, magistrate won't see you without an attorney if you are an LLC.
Oh, okay. That's okay. Now my understanding at magistrate level, they've no issue there whatsoever. We always do that.
Not here in West Virginia.
In West Virginia, yes. Any other issues? I mean, I know we kind of talked a little bit about that. We talked about the evictions. Any other issues you guys are having right now?
Well,
I'm having a problem.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm doing an eviction and I can't find the person. Does anybody have any suggestions how I can find them?
No, but publish it.
Public, all I have to do is publish it.
Yeah, it takes 2 weeks, two separate listings in the newspaper, and then you go back and ask the magistrate for judgment.
Okay, my hearing is the 2nd of April. Do I have time?
You probably have to continue it. But I think what Eric is saying is that you would go, just like you could serve with a sheriff or serve with a self-serve. That's is publishing a separate option, Kathy or Eric?
Yeah, you can't find them. You go to the magistrate and said, I'm going to publish. And so then you go down and see the clerk, and they fill out the papers, and you take it over and pay the newspaper for publishing it.
Oh, okay. I don't do it myself. I go through the court to publish it.
Well, you still have to.
Yes, and I'm going to jump in here and say you are required to try to serve them before you go to publication. So you can't go in the first time and ask for publication. You have to try to serve them. At your court date, come and show up for court, say, I couldn't get them served, I want to publish it. Then they'll let you publish. My issue has been that when, after they publish and I waited the 30 days,
or however long it is, and I went back, the magistrate never did sign the default judgment. So I've got a default judgment sitting out there, magistrate won't sign. And so I filed a whole new eviction and started the whole process over and found them. So you may have, depending on the magistrate, you may have a hard time getting them to sign it.
I have tried. They're already out, but they left owing me rent, and they didn't tell me they were leaving, and they left part of their things there. They didn't get everything out, but I've tried. I've gone. I don't know where they are, but I've gone to the relatives' houses and things, trying to evict them, but I can't find. The relatives never come to the door.
Wow.
Can't you post, post on the door abandonment? Give them 30 to, I think it's 30 days. And then if they don't come, then it's your property.
That's right.
Well, actually, what I would do, Aaron, what I always recommend is take possession of it because they've abandoned the place, and then store it. If you're going to store their stuff, store it in the garage or somewhere. Make sure you send them a certified letter to the last known address, which is their residence that you know of, which is your rental. And I've never had any issue with that. But I always send abandoned property letters because that's right. My understanding, that is the law. And if you don't do that, that's when you expose yourself to liability. And I'll even do it on an eviction too, just to be safe. Like if they left stuff.
Yeah, we usually have a bail bondsman post it for us. So that way we have a witness that it was posted, and then give them 30 days to get everything out. So we do that too.
Do you leave your unit basically unavailable to start working on during that time period?
We do.
Wow. See, I try to avoid it, especially if I'm trying to turn it. I'll go ahead and store their stuff and then get it rented out. But at least in my lease, if they're gone longer than 7 days and they don't notify me, they're considered abandoned.
Yeah.
The property, not their contents. I still give them the 30 days because it's in law.
Another thing we've done, hired a private investigator to find people. So I don't know if that might help you, but we've done that before too, and that's usually successful.
What do you use?
Well, I don't think I'm going to ever get any money out of her, but it's just piling more money.
Yeah.
Owed.
Now, I don't know if this is helpful, and I'm happy to share I had went through this process. It's like a TransUnion. It's called, it's like TLC, but it's meant for people that do collections. And it is a phenomenal search thing. Like I've used it to, I had a tenant move out on me, and I was able to wait a week, search their name and find a new location for them and serve them and get them in court. Because they basically just up and moved and went to the new place. And I don't know if it was a family, but anyway, I can take a license plate and do a reverse lookup on it. I can.
What was that, John?
It's called, they'll put you through the ringer to sign up for it, but it's like a, let me pull it up. It's called TransUnion. It's TLOXP. I'll show you something real quick. If you guys, it's 6:59, so you guys are welcome to leave. But I can show you something real quick, like if you just want to see it.
$59 a month or for?
Well, I had to negotiate with them. What I ended up doing, I pay a minimum of $50. Can everybody see that? This link?
Yep.
I pay a minimum of $50, but I use it. It's actually very nice. Let me put this also has that, what they call the two-factor authentication. So it has to send it to my text machine in order to, or my phone in order for me to look it up. But here I get a ton of different options. I can look up by email addresses. I can look up by driver's license, date of birth, social security, criminal records. Now, it's not meant you're not allowed to use it for background checks. That's the, I can use it because I do collect, and you guys can use it because you do collections on your tenants, like for, hunting them down for owing you money or hunting them down to serve them. But I find this tool has been a great little tool, well worth the, that they do the level that if you guys ever have gone through in order to do credit reports and all the requirements of credit reports, it's like that level of scrutiny, your finances, your business. They want to make sure you're a business and what purpose you're using it for. They want to know the location you're using it, any user that you use. But it's once you get qualified, it's very nice. Like I could take a license, like a drive, like I've had issues where people have dumped trash on one of my multi-units, and I had a picture of their license. I took their license and was able to see who that was. And then I sent the cops down to have a discussion with them about dumping their stuff on my property. So it's well worth it to me. But
Can John, this is Jane Chris Haber. Can you? I can't see. I can't get the visual on my.
Call me after the call. We can talk about it. But
okay, if you can send me that information, I'd appreciate it.
And what does it cost, Sean?
If like say I do a driver's license search, it's $1. If I do a basic search, it's $1. If I do the advanced search where I get, I can get their social security number, their birth date. Like say you're doing an eviction and you get a judgment, and you always have to have the last 4 digits of their social and their birth date. This is a great tool for it. It maps to their name. Like say you got their driver's license, it'll map their name and their social, and I can unlock it and see that. And I can also see the last 4 digits. So it's very, very handy if you do any kind of start doing, you've got a judgment, you're trying to collect on somebody. I've never had such a rich amount of information available to me.
Well, say somebody moves out of state.
It's nationwide.
Well, if you can find out where they work, that's how you can.
That's another thing it does too. Last known employment.
Wow.
John, how much did you say it cost?
I have to pay a minimum of $50, but each search transaction's a cost.
$50 for
a month.
A month.
$50 a month. Okay.
Minimum. But I have probably spent. Sometimes I'll spend $100. Sometimes I'll spend $60. And I think that once we get out of pandemic mode and go back to going back to collecting on people that owe past judgments or new collections, I'll probably get more use out of it. But it's worth it to me. I have found many different scenarios as a landlord that it's helpful, but you cannot use it for background. You still have to go through your normal. It's not meant to be background material, for background checks. But it's a nice tool. I'd highly, it used to be you could log online. I don't know if you guys ever know and do like a reverse phone lookup on a telephone. You can't find that anywhere anymore. And this tool will search the person, but also give you possible cell phone numbers too, and email addresses.
Well, John, you've helped me with other information before. You ought to set up a service where you charge your landlords. Help them out. Really?
I don't know what the just like a credit report. I'm sure there's certain regulations about how you use this information. That's the only thing you'd want to get checked. I'd probably at this point recommend you getting your own account and then using it for your tenants. So I don't know what using it outside of that scope, creates. So.
Well, maybe it's worth having it for a month or two and then dropping it, go through and find some of the old tenants. But $50 a month is still $50 a month.
Right. Absolutely. And that's the minimum I was able to get them. Some of the, there was a similar service, kind of the company that does the law books, they're close to $500 minimum a month. this was like the slimmed down version of that. So
You have to pay it every,
yeah, I pay it
even if
monthly.
you,
Yeah, even if I don't use it. But I'll tell you, if I just collect on a couple judgments a year, it pays for itself. I mean, it also tells me assets people own too. Like if I've got a tenant that I'm collecting, do I want to know if they own a car outright? If it's got a lien, it'll show me that as well.
Have you ever gone after anybody's assets, John?
I never have. I know it's possible, but I never have.
Has anybody on here ever done that? Jennifer, have you? Or Jennifer's gone?
She's on.
Okay.
I'm here. I was just muted. I have tried, but when I took the paperwork from magistrate court to the DMV, the addresses didn't match, and they said it had to be an exact match of what's on the magistrate paperwork and what's on the title of their vehicle. Well, that's never going to happen because
I've had
renters
that
move.
same experience.
Yeah, and so I wasn't able to move forward.
Now, bank, has anybody collected like through a bank? Swipe, did a suggestion to a bank account that the tenant had money at? I've had more luck collecting from their job as long as they'll stay working there. So, but but I have had lots of success with that last year or year before the pandemic started. I've collected quite a few doing garnishments and had them completely paid. I'm still collecting on some garnishment. It's slowed down during the pandemic, but I'm still getting some judgments that I had started as well.
It seems to be the most successful, John.
What is it?
The garnishment, we've done that as well.
Yeah, that seems to be and this software, I'm hoping, because you get some of these judgments and right now the people can't pay, but lots of people's circumstances change 5 and 7 years from now. So, I mean, I've collected as far back as 9 years ago with interest. So that $900 payment was worth $1,600. So with interest.
So if they've moved on and gotten a new job, this website will help you find out where they're currently working.
Where they're currently employed.
Now, have you, what I'm interested in knowing, if someone has moved out of, I'm trying to garnish somebody's wages now. This particular company has a branch here, but it's based in Ohio. I guess that doesn't matter. As long as they're active here in West Virginia, I should be able to garnish their wages. But what about if somebody moves out of state and they work for a company that's not located in West Virginia? Do those companies not feel obligated to follow through on a garnishment from another state?
I understood I've never done this. Hold on. I have done a garnishment before from West Virginia. I had a guy that was a railroader that was working in Arkansas, and we found out where he was employed at in Arkansas. And we sent the garnishment and they paid. But I understood, I don't know if there's maybe they didn't have to, I don't know. But we did send that to his employee in a different state. I understood that you had to go from circuit court to circuit court, but I don't in other situations, but I have had success in that. Maybe they did it optionally or didn't know, but they did pay his garnishment. Once you did the employment verification, last 4 digits of his social and his birth date and his name, and provided the judgment, they did pay it in full too.
Good for you, John.
Lucky.
Well, you have a lot of good
That's luck.
tools at your disposal.
Over the years, I've had 2 that have come to me to pay what they owe me. One was in West Virginia, and she was trying to buy a house, and they told her, you gotta pay this off before we will loan you any money. And the other one was in Florida. She applied for an apartment in Florida. They pulled up her background, found that she owed money, and they told her, you can't have the apartment until you pay it off, what you owe.
Nice. Nice.
So the judgments sometimes do follow people.
I understood now that, and you guys could make me explain, there's a way that you can, once you get a judgment, to record it over at the courthouse. It's a small little fee, but once you do that, it helps, like if banks or anything are searching, that they'll pick that judgment up. I haven't done that. I've never went through that. I have had a credit agency pick up a judgment from somebody, and he wanted to pay it as a result of that. But I understood that they only pick up larger amounts. I don't know if that's different now, but I've had something similar.
Both of my cases were not that large.
Okay.
One was 1,000 or maybe 1,000. The other one was 600, something like that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But you take it over to the courthouse. Now you can do that. It only lasts for 10 years. That's my understanding. You have to redo it every 10 years.
Jennifer's done that before, I know.
Did you guys do that for the ones that it showed up under?
No.
Okay.
John, that's called an abstract of judgment.
Oh, thank you, Ken. Yeah.
I've been very successful with garnishments, and most people that want to buy a house, they have to clean up their credit before they do that. I collected one last year for $4,800.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that was a 9-year-old deal.
Wow.
Another one for like 2,600 a couple years back. So it does pay off to get them recorded. And it's a small
Ken,
fee.
when you got the abstract of judgment, that really helped, because that helped them find when they were trying to apply for a mortgage, that helped that bank find that they had that outstanding judgment on them.
Yes, very much so.
But maybe we can have a meeting on how to do that, guys. We'll see if we can set that up. That would be something clearly useful. We could even review some collections and some of the when you go after somebody for suggestions. I don't know much about the banks, but maybe somebody on the call, or we can invite somebody who can talk a little bit more. I've never actually personally done submitting, like if you knew they had an account at BB&T, submitting that suggestion to them, but definitely garnishments. We do that a lot. So.
Right.
Okay, guys, we went over, and I apologize. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about? I know we diverted a little bit, but happy to take any more time if you guys need something else.
I just want to ask if anybody that is a member hasn't made it into the Facebook group. If you haven't, to please send me an email or John an email so we can get you into that group, the Facebook group.
Hey, Erin, what's your full name on Facebook?
It's Erin, middle name Barry, Barry, last name Alter, Alter.
I'll get you in real quick. So.
And there is one issue that we need to get people to fix. When you go into the Facebook group, there's like 3 dots up in the corner. If you click those dots, the default is it says you will just get highlights from the group, but you can select to see all posts for the group. I need to look at exactly what that is, like exactly how to get to that, and we need to send out an email. But right now, a lot of people aren't seeing the posts out of the group because it defaults to only seeing highlights out of our group. And that's for any group, not just ours. That's any group. So we probably need to send an email out to have people that on.
I'm Jane Grissaber, and I don't believe I'm on the group.
Jane,
Okay.
I think I have you on my friend. I'll add you as well, Jane.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just
I
requested.
sent you yours is not open for friend. If you'll friend request me, I sent you a message.
I just did.
Okay, great. I'll get you added as well.
Thank you.
Anything
Now,
else?
Aaron, what part of the state are you from?
I'm in the Panhandle, Martinsburg,
Okay.
Berkeley
Now,
County.
are you part of one of the property management companies up there?
Well, we manage our own properties. We go by A+ residential, but we have our own.
Oh. Okay. It's good to see new faces.
This has been wonderful. Thank you for all the information.
How are the court systems up your way, Aaron?
How are the what?
How are the court systems up your way?
Honestly, it kind of is a crapshoot. Some days are great, some days are not. It depends on who you get. Sometimes I go and ask who are we scheduling for this week, and come back the next week.
But I like that. It's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
I have a hypothetical question to ask. Well, it's not really hypothetical. It has to do with one of our court cases. We went and got a judgment on December 1st, and that was for prior rent prior to December 1st. The magistrate, Holland Lewis, who's no longer there, gave them 2 more months to stay, December and January. He got them to agree in theory that they would pay something. But of course they did not. They did not live up to the agreement. It seems to me that on the judgment, even though the judgment's for November rent and prior to that, it seems to me, since the magistrate allowed them to stay for 60 more days before we could evict them, that we should be allowed to add in on the judgment those 2 months rent. But I called the courthouse and somebody down there said, oh, you just have to do it with what's on the paper, what's on the judgment. If you want additional judgment, you have to take them back to court.
That's the way I understand it. Like, and I even understand it, like, say you start the judgment at $600, and for whatever reason it takes, you move into the next month, and that technically they owe the second month. You cannot add that to that judgment because it wasn't initially filed as that. So they have to be there in order to, now I don't know if it's different if they actually show up to court and are there present, but I know that they won't change that judgment if, say, you served them, but they don't show up. I've never had them add anything, if you request additional. I'm not sure if I've had them.
What about accrued rent? What does that mean? Is that just, if you put in accrued rent, it means for anything else they get. But if he puts down a number, then that accrued rent, I guess, means nothing.
Well, now, I've used accrued rent for the following. I always put accrued rent because when I go in, the magistrate is going to say, well, how soon can you get out? Well, can you get out in 2 weeks? As soon as he says that, I said, well, that's fine, but I want you to add accrued rent to it. I've requested it. And they will.
Okay. Do you ever find that different magistrates do different things, or is that pretty consistent, Eric?
You have to speak up.
Was that just, was it consistent? Like all magistrates are always willing to do that for you?
As long as you speak up.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Don't try to slip it by without doing it.
Yeah. Okay. So anything else? Well, guys, I appreciate everything, and I apologize it wasn't clear on the Mountaineer reason. It's so new, and I'll try to just post to the paid group, and I encourage you guys too, as you learn things, please post there, because I'm sure that this will be a learning experience, and hopefully this isn't a long-term thing that we have to rely on for some of our tenants. But there is some money there, and if you do have some tenants struggling, the money's there to help them. So as long as they qualify. Guys, have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the information.
Bye.